Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's session. I think we'll go ahead and get started. You all should have heard the prompt upon entering the room that the session is being recorded for the benefit of those who aren't able to join us in person today. For those of you who are here in person, we would like for this to be an interactive session in a discussion forum. So please, as we go, I'm going to be asking Bill a bunch of questions throughout our session, but as we go, place your questions in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll come to you right away. We're not going to wait for Q&A at the end. As I said, we'd like to make this interactive. We're also going to be having doing a short quiz with questions interspersed throughout the session, and we'll do this using Mentee. Bill has been kind enough to offer signed copies of his new book for the first three individuals to answer all three questions correctly. We're going to have just three quiz questions, again, interspersed. So Tamari from our policy program learning team, thank you for setting that up for us. And would you introduce that to the group, please, and provide the instructions?
Apologies, everyone. Yes, we have the Mentee code here, and I put the direct link along with the code on Mentee in the chat. So we're going to have three questions interspersed throughout the session, as Steve said. And so you can use this code to join on your smartphone or click the link in the chat directly to join.
Okay, so scan that QR code with your phone now, or go ahead and click the link in the chat. Rename yourself. It automatically gives you kind of a goofy name when you enter Mentee there. Change it to your name so we know who's who, as we're scoring that, and we'll get started. Aria, there's a question. Can you please resend a link? So let's, if you don't mind, Tamari, putting that in the chat again for those who may have just joined.
Absolutely.
Since you posted it. Thank you. Well, thanks everyone again for joining us. I'm Steve Rosenlund, Deputy Director for the Middle East to North Africa here at SIPE and Chair of our Chambers and Associations working group. I'm a certified association executive. We are very pleased to be joined today by William Pawlucy, goes by Bill. Bill is a CAE as well, with over 30 years of experience in nonprofit consulting. He's the founder and CEO of Association Options, LLC, providing top-tier management consulting services to nonprofit associations across the globe. His firm specializes in strategic planning, board and staff development, certification and accreditation, compensation analysis, executive recruitment, and more. Prior to launching Association Options, Bill held key leadership roles in various industries, including financial services, medical certification and accreditation management, association management, and with major media corporations as well. Bill has served on the National Board of Examiners to the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award as an appointee to the U.S. Department of Commerce and the National Institute of Standards and Technology. He's trained in the proven improvement and innovation framework of Baldrige, which emphasizes an integrated approach in key management areas, including leadership, strategic planning, customer focus, measurement, analysis, and knowledge management. Bill has worked with SIPE on numerous projects around the world. And in fact, he just returned from Republic of Georgia last week. And he is the author of a new book, The Essential Handbook for Nonprofit Leaders. I have my copy right here, tabbed with all my favorite sections. It's a comprehensive guide to nonprofit management, governance, and strategy. Bill, thank you for joining us. Welcome and congratulations on the new book.
Yeah, you're welcome, Steve. Glad to be here and glad to see so many familiar names. And hopefully folks, if they want to, open up their cameras to see their faces. But I see a lot of folks that I've worked with before, and just thrilled to be here, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Well, let's start with the most basic question I can ask. Why did you write the book?
Yeah, so I have to give credit to Bob Harris. He's been my mentor. He's wonderful. A lot of folks know Bob and probably have worked with Bob, and he's just become a great friend and family member for us. And he just said, I need to put something out there. 27 years, and one of the things I was thinking about, when I wrote this book, I said it needed to exist. First off, I truly believe in the business associations and what benefits they provide to their members and constituents. I think that's key. But there are a lot of business books out there for associations at this point in time that are very either academic, or others don't go deep enough. So you see, that's the two dichotomies between the two. What I wanted to write, and I said, if I'm ever going to write a book, it's going to be practical guide with practical resources and tools and real solutions packed into it. So I wanted any board member or executive director, so folks sitting on this call, to pick it up and say, okay, this section on missing in action board members, that's something that we're having a problem with. Not only am I describing it, but the solutions are in here too, how to deal with that. So everything is not only description of the problem, but the solution is there as well. So that's what I wanted to bring to the community to give back.
So you draw on your experience working with chambers and associations of all kinds, all around the world, representing, probably work with associations representing just about every industry or sector at this point.
Yes.
As I said, you just got back from Republic of Georgia. I know you've got a full slate of strategic planning sessions and other things coming up with associations in the States next week. What are the top trends and challenges that you're seeing that are facing associations today?
Yes.
You provide a pretty good rundown of those in the book.
Yeah, I do. And I think some of it's in terms of leadership. And we were talking about missing in action board members, and do we have the right leadership set in place right now? I see a void in leadership potentially coming by not having the next generation engaged. And a lot of organizations, we just did we're working on a strategic plan for a very large organization, and the survey respondents to one of the surveys, everyone was over 50 or 60. So there weren't too many that were in that next generation stage. So we're seeing a drain in terms of the talent that's going to be sitting in those seats. Also, one of the biggest things, I think, the top trends right now is the digital landscape that's out there right now, and how we leverage technology to enhance member experiences and engagement. I think that's hugely critical. I think as you see the rise with artificial intelligence, we're seeing organizations already leveraging that. And it's not something that's spoken. I mean, I may work with, I probably work with 100, 150 nonprofits a year, and maybe one or two this year so far have told me that they're integrating artificial intelligence into the work that they're doing. So, but I do think that there's a lot of critical issues from just financial issues. How do we keep the lights on within the organization? How do we get members engaged? So I think leveraging these technologies will help. I think strategic planning will definitely help to set the course for an organization. I think a focus on innovation. If you look at your boards, what I would highly recommend is when you're filling those board seats, look for folks that are really thinking in an entrepreneurial way, that are going to help develop the organization, not just take up a chair. They could be sitting in a seat, but it's still empty. And that empty chair syndrome is not good. But I would say focus on member value in everything that you do. And I think that's going to help you thrive in this ever-changing environment. But I can go on and on. The book has a lot of details in there. We talk about those issues. And I think a lot of that can be solved in an easy way, but then in some cases there's some tough decisions that have to be made, like almost, do we have to revamp our board and governance structure?
Well, those are some key ones there that you highlighted for sure. You also talk in the book about these what you call mega issues,
right?
And confronting what are really existential challenges in many cases, and disruptions facing this industry going forward. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, these are big things. You say, for example, the membership model is broken. It kind of hits you in the face, but this is a really critical challenge facing the industry.
Yeah, exactly. I think you touched on the biggest one in the membership model, because right now when you ask individuals, do you want to join? It's not the right question. I think the right question is, do you want to be a part of our cause? Do you want to make a difference? So that's one piece of it. And then also in terms of the membership model, one size does not fit all. And I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to take a shotgun approach to how we overlay benefits, how we provide benefits, services, and then we say, okay, it's going to work for everyone. So I think that's a key issue when you look at the membership model. The other thing is that, are we going deep enough into the needs of each of our member types? So one of the things that I highly recommend to get over this in terms of the membership model is to understand each member type, what they need and how you're going to offer that information to them. So that's, I think, a very, very critical piece in terms of the membership model is broken. Also, does it have to be a membership model? It can be a subscription model. Can you think of it as customers for your services? We talked about the AI and how that's going to integrate in the future and provide on-demand, very focused, targeted information. Associations need to really think about, in terms of membership, what am I going to get today? Because I had a client that was declining in membership. They were looking to go out of business, and they actually did go out of business. And we had a big membership forum. And one of the big things with the discussion that we had, one member said, well, why would I go to this competing organization and not stay with this organization? And they said, well, we get information, just in time information. We get it right when we need it. So I think the membership model is broken currently. I think we can look at different ways to adapt it and think of it more than just membership, and think of it more as running a business and how we, how we're going to deliver on that value. So. And I would, and there's a couple other things. So think of
before we go to those, because I know you've got others, but and this is related. Kareem Shaban, our program director based in Jordan, Kareem, Bill.
Yes.
He asked, on this point about AI, how can AI increase member engagement and supplement the lack of capacity in smaller associations? Is AI relevant to smaller budget, smaller membership organizations, or is it just the big groups that can deal with AI at this point?
Well, I would say highly, highly relevant, because I'm working with one of the largest national associations here in the United States, and they've been integrating AI into the work that they're doing for the past year. The second piece is I worked with a smaller state association, business association, and they have one team member that's their sole focus is to now utilize artificial intelligence as a plug-in to the association. So specifically what they're going to do is take the body of knowledge that the association currently has, and they're going to teach the AI model all of the information that they have, from public policy to their continuing medical education courses, across the board. So everything and anything that you have within one of your business associations, you can teach the AI to now effectively respond to anyone. So I can log on, and this is the vision for the one association I'm working with in the state of Florida. You can log in and you can ask a question, any relevant question. It'll know the context of the question. It'll also know how to respond to the question. It'll also pull all the relevant information from that question. It'll also pull resources that you can get immediately. So what happens is it almost, I'm not going to say it eliminates your website, because that's still a great tool, things that you need to have on there. But what it does, it takes and actually serves up a custom menu for you, just for you. And you could think about engagement with your members. Imagine going on at 2:00 in the morning and saying, I need to have this question answered. I can't wait till the staff is there, and I'm not going to try to navigate this website. It's instant. And that goes to that instant value proposition. And then you talk about non-members. There is an application that you can do with AI, which gives you a limited set of resources. It'll still answer your questions, but it'll also direct you to your association's big content as well. And it'll also say, we have a meeting that's coming up that I think could supplement this information. Here's some of the articles that are public access. And then if you're interested, we can go deeper, but it'll be $20 a month or something like that. So we're not thinking of dues as the annual thing. It's like, okay, now I have a subscription to, for example, like let's say South Carolina Medical Association. So it really flips the thinking on the head, where the website was now the device and the tool for information. You use social media for all this stuff. You are teaching a model that can respond to any question that you have far greater and far better. And then to Kareem's question, in terms of resources, you're not going to need folks sitting there answering chats, emails, and all of those pieces, because I know the resource issues, in the countries with the partners that we work with that are on the screen here. So there are now rising professions, linguists, and others that are now getting into the plugin space for artificial intelligence. So I would highly recommend.
Doesn't the human touch still matter though?
The human touch does matter. And I think that's a key piece. And I think what we're taking away with artificial intelligence is the frustration that members have, because they don't want that human touch when they want instant information. Like they don't want, I don't want to call Steve to find out, where I have to find this resource, because I'd rather find it on my own, right? But the human touch, what they like is what maintains that human touch is, now I've got the information that I need. Now I can maybe talk to some of my colleagues, that are in the field. There's also, let's say, a space, whether it's a Twitter space or a Facebook space now that's open, that I can have conversations around this. So what it does is it enhances the touch. It really makes it a meaningful touch, rather than, just, you don't want to have, so early on, I had a mentor, he said, you don't want people calling the office, you don't want people emailing the office, you don't want people texting, because 90% of the time it's issues. So the human touch is great only at that highest level, and it's going to enhance. So I see a great future with that, but I also see, if we're not on top of this, everyone that's here on this page and folks that are listening to this, there are other organizations that will take a body of knowledge and try to take our space, in this business association space. So we need to be first to market, I always say, when this happens. So the time is right now. Actually, it was a year ago, but now as you see these online AIs rising, it's easier now to integrate some of this stuff, because now we have experts to do it. It's not that expensive, and then the AI platforms are all offering plugins for that. So it's a really exciting time, but I would say that you need to be there. I mean, you cannot wait.
Okay.
This is an investment that needs to be made at this point.
Well, we're going to come back to some more of the mega challenges, the mega issues, as you call it. But first, let's go to our first quiz question. Tamari, if you will, please, we could pull up the first quiz question, and everybody will have 30 seconds to answer. First to answer the correct question is the goal.
I love these quizzes.
Absolutely.
Tamari,
Pulling it up
will
now.
we see it on the screen?
Yes, give me
Okay.
1 second to pull it
Okay.
open.
All right. And everybody follow that link or the Mentee page from scanning the QR code, as you may have done at the beginning. And we'll go to our first question. Bear with us. We're trying something a little new with this in this session. So here we go.
Great.
Question
Can
one.
everyone see this?
Wow, 22 players already. Look at
All
all
right,
the
let's
players.
get more in there.
All right, get into the game.
Get into the game. All right, Tamari, let's go ahead.
Okay, great.
I love the icons that folks chose.
Um,
Okay. Blank, this is from the book. Blank stands as the foremost and essential element that forms the bedrock of any team's success. And we have the choices. Yeah, okay. Efficiency, camaraderie, communication, or talent.
Well, I think I know the answer.
Which of those stands as the foremost and essential element that forms the bedrock of any team's success? Okay,
Awesome.
very good. Very good. The vast majority of people got communication, the correct answer.
Oh, I see somebody listed collaboration here as an alternative, but yeah, collaboration is great. Communication is definitely number one. Because if you can't communicate, you can't be a cohesive team, and you can't collaborate.
Exactly. So do we see the leaderboard now, Tamari, or are we going to say, okay, Who was quickest on the draw? Was it
Oh,
Lars?
wow.
All right, Lars. Good job. Very nice.
With 946 points. That's awesome.
All right, so let's go back to the mega challenges. I mean, what are some of the others? We talk in the book about culture too, and
Yeah.
culture having changed around business membership organizations and joining.
Yeah, I think it's not valuing membership associations as much, or business associations as much anymore. Culture has kind of shifted away from that because volunteerism is somewhat dying in a lot of ways because people are spread too thin. And also I think culture just doesn't see the benefits of how business associations are really contributing. And I think that we need to make a bigger effort, I would say, in terms of informing the public and others as to the great accomplishments that are happening within your countries. I mean, I was just in the Republic of Georgia, and we were setting certification and accreditation standards in the country for the first time, really. And these are pioneers heading into that space. So I really hit home that communication is going to be critical, speaking to that question of communication, to communicate the value that we provide and show the value that we provide on a regular basis. And I think some of the ways, like in terms of culture not valuing, we've been business associations for 100+ years, really. And the names have never changed. It's like the Chamber of Commerce of X, Y, and Z, the Business Association of car dealers or rental car dealers or something like that. We need to think about changing the name. And I just worked with one organization in the healthcare space. They're the healthcare providers. So they're in one state. So they have a competitor, and they're the association. They're named like an association, like the New York Society or whatever it is. And then there's the other side of the coin where there's another organization called Leading Age. They do similar things, similar value, but they have a different name. Like, why are we calling ourselves associations still? And I talk about that in my book. Like, there's one hypothetical organization I list in here, and I think it's like a Greener Tomorrow. It's a sustainability organization. Or you could have called it the Association for Sustainability in whatever it is. But a greener tomorrow is much more exciting. And you're thinking about the next generation that's coming in. They really need to think about, how that's looking. So I would say old-fashioned terminology is something that we need to get away from. I think the old-fashioned traditions that we need to get away from. We're always sitting in a U-shaped table at our board meetings, right? The front is the president, the vice president, the secretary, the treasurer, all the other people are the directors. It's like the United Nations, when you're sitting there. Think about changing even the way that you conduct business. Have roundtables, have workshops within your sessions. Again, we need to change and evolve so that we look different, we feel different, we deliver information different. And also we're seeing, one of the mega issues is erosion within the space as well. We see a lot of for-profit business associations that are popping up that are just, to use the phrase, eating our lunch. And they're doing that because they are looking different. They're taking those steps right now to look different. So my recommendation is let's beat them at the punch and really get in there and change the way our associations look and feel, our business associations. And I really have to just go back to the technology that's moving at such a fast pace. If we can be in there right now, I think we can make a huge difference, and our members are going to appreciate that as well. So those are some of the things I go in much more detail into those issues, but I see them as the turning point for many business associations. And the turning point is thrive or die. There is no in between at this point. And I would say within the next 5, it could be 3 to 5 years that we're going to see some major impacts to those organizations that have not changed. We need to change. We need to survive because you're doing so many great things. These other organizations that are coming up that they're giving you. So they've given us trust. Let's give them something back.
Yeah. Well, it's a pretty stark choice.
Yes. So, and the opportunity. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I had a bit of a connection issue there. I'm not sure if it's on your end or my end, Bill, but you're back now. But you put a pretty stark choice on the table. Survive or thrive or die.
Right.
It doesn't get more clear than that. You write also in the book about the importance of agility. I mean, a lot of this comes down to agility and an organization's ability. An organization that may have been around for 50, 70, 100 years. How do they remain, or in some cases gain a newfound agility to get ahead of some of these trends and issues?
Yeah, so Steve, I think that's a great question. And what I would ask folks to do is write this down and bring this to your board meeting and pop it right up on the screen. Agility refers to an organization's ability to quickly adapt and respond to changing circumstances. Like, how quickly can we adapt and change to existing or changing circumstances? So I think that the biggest key thing that we have is, how flexible are we? How nimble are we? And also, how proactive are we? So we can be flexible and nimble and identify issues and problems, but if we do nothing about it, it doesn't matter. It's the process of going through it, right? It's the process, we're thinking it through. It's a big issue, but we're not going to make any change right now, maybe a year or two down the road. But the big thing is to act. And I think to stay agile, so that's the piece of agility, but to stay agile is to foster a culture on your boards of continuous learning and improvement. That means now we have to think about if I was hiring for my company, I'm going to hire the top subject matter experts. We have to now look at that. I'm working with one business association now, and they are restructuring their organization from more of like, okay, it needs to be representation from this region, this region, this region. And it's more about core capabilities. So they're going more to a global teams type of approach. And each team has a certain competency, and they bring that competency to the overall board. So no longer is it, I'm just sitting on the board because I got elected and I have to figure it out. You can't wait to figure it out anymore. So I think, when we talk about staying agile, it's continuous learning and improvement. I always talk about open communication, which we had, collaboration. And I think what we need to do is empower, because I know a lot of us here potentially don't have professional staff teams where you're paying staff potentially. You may have a small team, or you may have some team members, and I know, or you may have a large team, but the biggest thing is empower your team to take calculated risks. Let them make mistakes. Let them take the strategic plan and budget, run with it. And you don't have to micromanage them and stay on top of them in that way. Let them report back on a dashboard as to what they've done and how they're meeting performance measures, because that's the key thing. Set performance measures. Let your team meet or beat those performance measures. So, and then finally, embracing technology, as we talked about, how do we leverage data? And Kareem just noted in a comment that our content can be expanded. So once, let's say the AI starts learning, all the information that we have that's very specific to our organization, we can just release it to have other areas explored and integrated, but that's where you have to have a little bit of human, you can't trust the AI you have to really look at the information, make sure that content's valid, because AI is pulling from everything across the globe, everything that's on the internet currently. Not everything on the internet's right or proper. So you have to teach it that it understands what proper means. It has to have a moral compass as well. It has to have ethics, in terms of what it's bringing back as the result. So all of that needs to be the responsibility of the business association. So I would say, stay attuned to the external environment, have that innovative mindset, and I think you can stay agile, but you have to empower people to do the work that they need to do.
So you're talking about some pretty profound and substantial changes that organizations should consider making in their business model and operations going forward. Susana asked the question in the chat: where do you start from? Because it may seem overwhelming to a lot of organizations to know where to even start.
Well, it's easy.
Right.
So it's right in here. So I outline all of these pieces. And if I go through even a table of contents, number one, it starts with your mission. Why do we exist? Who are we? Who do we serve? So it's really important to understand that. I think you need to have that base foundation. The next piece is building that board, and making sure that you have subject matter experts that understand and govern as a trustee of your organization, because they have a legal responsibility. They also can't be missing in action. They can't act alone. They have to have gavel to gavel authority. So all of those key elements are needed, because you can't get to the next step unless you have that. So I would say, look at your mission, make sure it's solid, make sure you know who you serve. Also make sure that you have a strong board of directors and a strong team that's going to execute. Strategic plan comes right after that, and it really needs to follow and look at the challenges. So I know we talk about environmental scanning. Understand what that environment looks like. This doesn't mean in your environmental scan you're going to start doing surveys and all of those things. An environmental scan is much more than surveys. In an environmental scan, I would recommend that you talk to the leaders within your organizations and talk to those that are even non-members and say, what are the drivers of change for our organization? Within those drivers of change, do research in each of those and then bring that back. It may be a big step for some organizations to do it, but it's something that if you want to talk offline at some point, we do have someone that's great, and she would be more than happy to talk to you about how to do an environmental scan. I think that's it. And then the next piece is we have to have sustainable revenue and finances. So if we don't have that, we're not going to be able to make change happen. And also succession planning. We have to make sure that, yes, we set up a very strong leadership team from our professional staff team to our board. If we don't have a succession plan, we're only as strong as that next board. So we want to make sure we have that in place. So I would say that that's a key element. And then also look at what you're currently doing and stop doing the things that are no longer valuable to your members or to your constituents or customers. I would even say, forget your members, because sometimes, if you look at all of your members across the board, and I ask you, what's your market share? And I heard this before. Well, we have 5% market share. We have 10,000 members. So what, Steve, my math, I went to public school, so I don't know if it's really that good, but is that 2 million potential or 200,000 or something? I think it's 200,000 if my public school math is good. So 5% of that. So I always ask the question, what does the 95% want? Ask them what they want, because you're not attracting them. You're only getting the same 10 people, or the STP problem. That's why you get the same, it's almost 2 people for all of your events. So I would say that that's a big piece of it. And then I think one of the things I talk about later in the book is communicating your story and brand. I think that's going to be critical once you make these changes, because if you don't communicate it, you can invent the greatest thing in the world. Just like this book talk, this could be sitting out on the shelf. I could have one copy there and it doesn't get out to anyone. It does no good. So communicate your story and your brand and how valuable it is and what you've done to really revamp your organization. So I think it can be done in those steps. And I think, maybe that's something, we talk about later, Steve, and build like a toolkit for how to revamp your organization. But I think, there's a lot of pieces in the book that'll help you get there.
Yeah. Well, I want to get into some more of this, but first let's go to our second quiz question.
All right.
Tamari, if you do the honors here. Everybody get ready.
Of course.
Okay. Question 2. All right.
Wow, that's quick.
A board's fiduciary responsibilities include all of the following except duty of care, duty of loyalty, duty of obedience, duty of leadership. Okay. Yes, the correct answer was duty of leadership. Duty of leadership. And it looks like Lars remains in the lead at this point. adding to his lead, but duty of leadership, not leadership, obviously critical to the association, not one of the three fiduciary responsibilities of the board, which are the duties of care, loyalty, and obedience.
Mhm.
You go into that a little bit in the book, Bill.
I do.
They're
Yeah.
really
So I think
foundational elements.
exactly. And I think obedience came up. I saw a couple answers here that was the wrong one, but what that means is really we're following all the laws, regulations, our own bylaws. We're following things that are going to help us make our organization functional, and we're not breaking the law either. So that's a key piece there. And duty of loyalty means we're not going to have conflicts of interest. We're not going to have, we're going to be loyal to that organization. When we sit at that board meeting, our hat is that business association's hat. No outside interest. And of course, duty of care means when you show up at a board meeting, first thing is you show up. The second piece is you make sure that you read all the information and that you're ready there. You're taking the full care needed to make good business decisions and use your best judgment as you're doing that as well. So,
Yeah.
So that
not
was a great
something
question.
not something to be taken for granted either. I mean, this is not necessarily universally understood or just automatic, that requires board training, board orientation, that board members are really oriented to the responsibilities of a director. And that's something that, in our programs and working with associations around the world, we really have to focus on to make sure that that's, this kind of basic duties are understood,
Hugely.
observed. Yeah. Well, I want to go back to the, you touched on strategic planning, and you do a lot of strategic planning with your clients. You've done a lot of strategic planning with site partners around the world.
Mhm.
What makes for a good plan these days? And at the same time, we just, I can't help but think we just came through COVID. Did a lot of plans just kind of go out the window? Organizations came into the pandemic with a plan. Did that go out the window? Did strategic planning survive COVID?
Mhm.
Or was it rendered obsolete in some ways? What's your view on this?
Yeah, so I would say, first of all, the terminology, we're changing that now, and I didn't put it into this book because it's more, folks know strategic planning, and that's how we framed it. But now we're really moving towards, and with all of our clients, we're focusing on strategic forecasting. It's very, very similar to strategic planning, because strategic planning, you're still looking at mission, vision, value, goals, strategies, all of those key pieces. You're doing your whether you're doing a pestle analysis or some other analysis to look at certain things. But strategic forecasting now gives you a little bit of a crystal ball into what the future looks like. That goes into what's the environment telling us? What are some of the future trends that are happening? What are the future impacts that can happen to us? And I have to say that the organizations that we've worked with, they have called us and said, thank goodness we had a strategic plan during COVID, because they were able to shift in many different ways. Because I could tell you, there was one plan that we did in March of 2020, and that's when we were getting on a plane, and it's like all this crazy stuff was happening. It was like one of the last flights. And we talked about, what if there's an impact in our ability to deliver meetings live? What do we do? So they said, okay. And we talked about that earlier. There was probably 6 months prior to our plan. And they already started putting steps in place to start looking at, what's this hybrid thing look like? And what's the Zoom thing look like? Did many people use this? And I'm like, we were using it since, I would say, 5 years prior to the pandemic. So we said, definitely try to use that and deliver education in a different way. So I got a call from them, and they were like, Bill, I can't believe that we talked about this during our session, and we were 6 months into revamping our programs, because they actually increased revenue. They increased their reserves by $2 million during that period of time. And the way they did it, because they weren't actually traveling to the meetings, they didn't have those expenses. But they launched, their satisfaction levels went up, their retention went up. They actually added a ton of new customers, as I call it now, but members to the organization. So I would say I had probably 15 emails or calls right after that to say, thank goodness we had a strategic plan. There were several organizations that we didn't work with that called us after the fact, and they said, we're going out of business. What can we do? At that point, it's too late. They did not adapt or change. And then also with strategic forecasting, it's not a one and done for your strategic plan. And even in your strategic plan, it should not be a one and done. You should always be looking around the corner, always seeing what's happening in the economy, what's happening in the political, always doing kind of a mini SWOT analysis, if you would, so that at every board meeting, you have your strategic plan front and center and it's being reviewed. And I think that that's going to help. And I would say that it shouldn't be the only time when you're doing, let's say you do a 3-year plan, that first year you're doing the stakeholder analysis, market trends, you're looking at the competitive landscape and all of these pieces. Just like we talk about with the work that we do at SIPE, for example, we do regular monitoring and evaluation, right? We want to make sure that we're meeting those KPIs. If anything is contributing to a reverse in those KPIs or an issue, we're going to make change happen right away. We have to. So I would say if we can do that, I think regular monitoring and evaluation, and I would say have your plan at every board meeting, that should be your agenda item topic. And then also, there should be always an update as to what's changing in our environment. We talked about agility. That's going to help here as well. So I would say they were a huge help to organizations, as long as they weren't sitting on the shelf. If they were, then, the dust was collecting.
Yeah, I was going to say that it seems like a real tool to achieve the agility that you were talking about versus limiting the range of options for organizations if done properly.
Yeah, and I would say just one other thing for strategic plan, don't just put it on one page of your website, permeate and integrate it into everything, every one of your messages. So if one of your goals is education, there's a great description of your goal. Just say, as part of our strategic plan, we're talking about really innovating in terms of how we deliver education. Always have that front and center, because nobody's going to go to your website to the section that says strategic. Well, some may, there's a few that'll read it, but permeate it, get it throughout the organization, because otherwise it'll just sit there and your members and your customers are not going to know.
Keep the questions coming, everyone, in the chat, or feel free to raise your hand in the last 20 minutes that we have. Associations should really be mission driven, and the strategic plan starts with the mission. It flows from the mission. That's the foundation for everything. And in the book, you write about the concept of return on mission.
Oh.
What's that all about, and how does it relate to the concept of return on investment, ROI, which people are probably more familiar with?
Yeah, that's right. And I don't know if we're the first to really talk about that, because I think there's probably some other organizations that may have mentioned it, but we've been bringing return on mission into the space for probably the last 5 to 6 years, because we see that as highly important. So return on mission and return on investment are two different but equally important measures of success. So as we all know, ROI focuses on financial returns, profitability, all of those things that we look at. And yes, business associations can make a profit and reinvest that profit. That's why, we have dues that keeps the lights on, but then we have other things that we do, like trade shows and expos and other things that help us to innovate and actually do more for our business associations. And that just goes back to everything we talked about in terms of trying to get to that next level. Our members need to know we're going to reinvest, those dollars. Because I've heard too many times with our partners in SIPE, I don't want to pay any more dues. I want to get everything for free after that. And then we have to really show them the value that they're going to get and the return on investment they're going to see. So ROI, we talked about financial returns, profitability, but return on mission emphasizes the achievement of the organization's mission and the impact it creates. So for example, I just was talking about this with an organization yesterday that I was working with. They're an infectious disease. And I asked them, I said, you can have a return on investment for most of your programs or something that's totally unrelated. For example, you can create a cookbook that everyone loves, and it has a great return on investment because you're selling 50,000 cookbooks and it's adding to your return on investment. But do your members really want, like Kareem, for example, let's say, spending his time being a publishing company and not focusing on the public policy advocacy needs? No. You would lose your members and become a cookbook company. If that's what you want, that's great. Run your cookbook company. But return on mission allows you to put everything through the lens. It says, here's our mission. does this actually provide a return on that mission? And then you can gauge all of your programs that way on a scale of 1 to, let's say, 7. And you could say, okay, does this provide a return on mission? And then you can have the same thing on a scale of 1 to 7. Financially, does it provide a return on investment? You could see that there could be a huge disparity between the two. So always consider both when you're making decisions. It needs to have a great return on mission, a great return on investment, or, I would say great return on mission and has to have some return on investment at some point in time.
Right. I really like the complementarity of the two concepts.
Mhm.
They work well together. Let's go to our third quiz question.
All right.
As we're in the last quarter of our session today, we'll get to the last question. See who our winners are. Again, signed copies of the book for the top 3 finishers. So here we go.
All right.
So Lars, Susanna, and Puffy are the first 3. I don't know who Puffy is. You're gonna have to identify. You're gonna have to identify yourself. All right. I hope Puffy knows who they are. Okay. This governing document defines the relationship between the association and its stakeholders. Articles of incorporation or charter, bylaws, policies, or strategic plan.
That's a tough one, Steve.
Came to play today, Bill.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely. I wish I could join in.
Okay. We had a majority get it right here. Bylaws is the correct answer.
Terrific. And US-based association articles are the relationship with the state. And then I saw the other one, policies is the wisdom of the board, as we call it. And I think there was another one that I missed there, but that's a great question.
All right. Well, that concludes the quiz. Congratulations, Susanna, our first place finisher. Will be the recipient of a signed copy of the book. Second place is Puffy, but we need to know who Puffy is.
Right.
Does Puffy know who they are?
Right. Is Puffy out there?
And was third Lars? I think tomorrow.
Yes, Lars was 3rd.
Okay. If we can't find out who Puffy is, we're gonna have to go to the next.
Oh, Lawrence Norris is Puffy.
No. Oh, that is Lawrence. Okay. All right, very good. Congratulations, Susanna, Lawrence, and Lars. Very good.
Yeah.
There was a question. We got a few questions here that I want to go to. Bill, in the era of social media and new networks being created and engaging people constantly, how do you choose which ones to use to share our mission with our audiences? You probably get that.
Let's see. Be creating engagement, how to choose which ones are so I would say it needs to be a social media firestorm. And I really believe that, let's just say, anywhere I turn, I see your organization. So I'm turning to the left, I see you on Twitter. I turn to the right, I'm seeing you on Facebook. Again, in these platforms, and in my book I have those listed as well, but there's different demographics that are going to be sitting, whether it's an Instagram, that folks are going to be sitting in. But what I always say is make a social media firestorm. Wherever they turn, they're going to find you. If it's on your website, that's great. If it's on Facebook, if it's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of those key areas. So thank you for that question. I see a thumbs up there. I got to that good point. And then I know there's a couple other questions, or do we?
Yeah, we got some others as well. Return on mission. Lars is asking, with return on mission, are there indicators to measure that, or are they more qualitative? Is it more qualitative measurement?
So it is qualitative and quantitative too. If you do a stakeholder survey and you really list out all of your key programs, they will actually tell you how valuable they are on a scale of 1 to, like, let's just say 7. We did this. We actually had we reviewed a value survey for the National Association of Realtors, and you could see some individuals did not even know that a program existed. So the methodology that we used, we actually did it with NAR, was we did ask the professional staff team to give us that input. We did ask the board to give us that input. We asked the leaders. We gave them on a scale of 1 to 7, 7 being the highest, 1 being the lowest in terms of return on mission. And then we gave them kind of a scale definition. And then we also coupled that with the member value survey that was done by another company. And then we also did an impact effort analysis. So what's the impact and effort for some of these programs as well? So it was a combination. So you definitely can get a quantitative feel for this, not just saying, oh yeah, I think it's, it works, because you're really going to get all that feedback. And then you'll be able to know these 10 programs are now at the bottom and they need to be sunsetted potentially. We have to say it very nicely instead of killed off, or in Arabic, when you send it to committee, you're sending it to die, right? Yeah. I forgot, Kareem told me that before, one of the translators said. So
the data is very important. Market research is important in all of this. Kareem asked the question here, what are some tactics you use to increase response rates when you're doing market surveys and because that's something that we're trying to do more of that with our partners, but honestly, it's a struggle to get a good response rate, to really understand where the members are at or the potential they're at. How do you deal with that?
So the biggest thing, it's not a one-time event. It is not. Gathering information is a perpetual thing that you're doing with all of your business partners. So Kareem, I know you have events and you have programs and you have other ways where you're engaging with, the members of the business associations in Jordan or Palestine and, the different places. So I would integrate, like we're doing this quiz, I integrate data collection into a webinar like this. I also integrate questions during events. So I have like clickers or poll anywhere. That's cheap to do. People pull out a cell phone, they could have a flip phone and answer information. I have folks that are actually exit question takers. So when somebody's leaving an event, you're asking them questions. And then also when you're doing the actual, so let's just say you have a big research project, you should know about it prior to, the next day. You're not going to launch it. You should know you've planned this. So you should know what your events are, where you can collect that data. And then also we've had great success with focus groups where we've had up to 10 people, 3 sets, members, non-members that have come together where you can gather that information. But I would say that it needs to be perpetual, needs to be in the moment data collection. So you should have your questions sectioned off so that you're getting the biggest response rate. And also, how do you get your members engaged? And that's what we're doing in Georgia right now in terms of certification accreditation standards involving a broader. I remember one member said, my blinders were like this. I'm going to just talk to my members. She said, my blinders are like this after today. And she said, I'm going to involve the government. I'm going to involve educational institutions. So identify all of your key stakeholders, talk to them. Surveys, as we know, Kareem, with your question, if you send a survey, you have to go to their office to fill it out or get them on the phone. So they're not going to fill it out that way. So perpetual, in the moment, and then also focus groups are really great ways to get that. And if you incentivize them in some way, even better. You give them a gift card or something, and they'll definitely come. Food is always a good incentive.
Great, good advice. Good advice all around. I want to ask about. We've only got a few minutes left. Sustainable revenue and finances. You have a whole chapter on this. This is really important, obviously. How does an organization achieve sustainability? It's, sometimes I think it can feel like the holy grail for nonprofit to be sustainable. What does that really mean? What does sustainability look like in the year 2023 for a nonprofit association?
Yeah, I think the first part of sustainability is being relevant to your members or stakeholders or customers. So relevance, I think, is a critical piece. So in order to get there, I think you have to really take a look at your revenue streams and diversify them. See what your members and stakeholders want, and these are members and non-members, and deliver that information to them. I think also, are there strategic partnerships that you want to cultivate where you can leverage some of those to increase the reach of your programs? I think that's a key piece too. But I think that in terms of financial stability, I really think you have to think of programs that individuals are going to want and need, and they're going to be relevant to them, and there's a great return on mission for them. And we talked about how AI is integrating. Imagine if everything in your space, you are the thought leader, and now you have something that is so responsive to your members, and they can only get it being a member. You know, again, what's your golden handcuff? Is it that? Is it certification? Is it the standards and accreditation that we're talking about in Georgia? So there has to be something that you do better than anyone else and give you that competitive advantage. So I know that probably wasn't like the specific answer, because it's going to be very specific to each organization, but you have to have relevancy first, and deliver on that relevancy, on that promise.
Okay, well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in the last hour. I want to give one last opportunity for anybody to ask any questions. Open mic, pass the open mic around.
Yeah, there we go.
For any final interventions. Otherwise, we'll plan to wrap it up. We're going to be recording a podcast as well, so stay tuned for that with Bill. The lucky winners, 3 lucky winners, will get their signed copies of the books. But for the rest of you, I think we shared the link earlier where you can get the book, and please feel free to avail yourself of that, make use of that. Contact Bill. He's always been a great resource for this team. Thank you very much, Bill, for your time today, for all the insights that you shared. Really, it's been just a fascinating conversation with you as always.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here, and huge success to everyone. And we share everything, and you're part of the Association Options family. If you ever need anything, let me know. We have like the top 100 policies. We'll just send it to you. You know, just email me and I'll make sure that you get what you need. So thank you.
Terrific.
And thanks for having me, Stephen.
Thank you, Bill, for doing this. And thank you, everybody, for joining us and for a good session.
Yeah, thank you.